Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Bitcoin miners. We're going to try to make this more frequent because, again, we are in the Bitcoin bull run. So we're going to go over that and also our top altcoin picks. So with that being said, let's get it. All right, so before we get into the miners, I'll show you guys a couple things real quick. So first thing is we did not show you guys this yesterday, but yes, we do still have all of our positions. And we did add a little bit of ETCG. As you guys can see now, we're at 72 shares, just under 17 bucks. Current price 13.40, so we're probably just going to keep on buying this one as long as it goes down. We were thinking initially we were going to kind of do a split between the two or between all three, which is the Grayscale Trust, Bitcoin miners, and native crypto. But at this point, I'm thinking we're probably going to just rotate month over month. So probably 1 month we'll do strictly the miners. The next month we'll do strictly native crypto, and then the Grayscale Trust, and so on. Just kind of do it like that so we can get more concentrated positions. But yeah, anyways, we're doing pretty good so far. So I have no intention of selling ltcn at these prices because we're pretty confident they're going to 10x from this current price easily, if not way more than that. So currently buying ETCG, still waiting for a little bit more of a dip on HN, and that's kind of what's going on right now. So here's our native alt picks. As you guys can see, we have Filecoin, AIOZ, Bitcoin, of course, can't not have some Bitcoin. So Filecoin and AIOZ are DPIN projects, and AIOZ is also, on top of being DPIN, it is an AI project. So we have Dash, Banker, Render, another AI project, Scale, Crypto.com, Graph, Horizon, Engine, Zcash, Ethereum, Litecoin. Definitely want to get more Litecoin for sure while it's still cheap. And also some Algorand. We have some other positions too, but they're not actually on here. So anyways, let's get into the miners. So CLSK, as you guys can see, it did bounce out of this broadening rising wedge pretty much perfectly off the EMAs and the support here. So current support 1220 to about 1360. 2107 to 2110, somewhere in there, to about 2370 is going to be your resistance, and the peak up here is about 26 or 2460, I should say. So if you look over here on the right, you guys can see that the miner is pretty much just moonshot today, or it looks like it's beginning to moonshot. I'm not really sure which. So CLSK up massively, 11% on the day, Mara 6%, Riot a whopping humongous 23%, HUT 8, 14.5%, btbt 10%, and cifr roughly about 19%. Again, cifr is one that we're not going to buy now because we want to see it come back down to support before we buy it. And of course, bitf roughly about 7%. So right, the measured move. So if we were to do the measured move from the current support to resistance, assuming it even comes back down there, it's about 54% to 71%. 80% to get back up to that wick high. If you guys didn't buy down here, I mean, that's completely up to you. I can't tell you guys what to do with your money. It's your money. You can do what you want with it, but the opportunity does seem to have passed by. So now we'll go over to the daily. As you guys can see, earnings is also coming up for CLSK. So that's going to be on May 24th, so about a month from now. So also Mara earnings, we'll just go over these real quick. So again, May 24, about a month. Riot is going to have its earnings soon, so also same day. HUT 8, I think this one's pretty far out. Yeah, it's going to be a while before we get earnings on this one. So btbt is pretty much right around the corner. We're well positioned at btbt. We have like almost 900 shares at this point, so you can see that's not far off. That's going to be basically a couple of days? Yeah, no, 3 days from now. So that would be Tuesday, Wednesday. That'll be on Thursday that btbt has earnings. And cifr, they have earnings at the start of next month. And bitf, that's a little ways away. Again, the same as the top three here. So now we're going to go into Mara. Switch back over to the weekly time frame here. So weekly time frame, same thing as CLSK, this rising broadening wedge. This previous support did turn into resistance, so that's presumably if the trading patterns that we've been seeing for years on end are to remain the same, It went from resistance to support now to resistance, so we should see a back test and some kind of pullback of some kind. How deep it's going to be, I don't know. But current support about $7 to $12.30, resistance 18 to 19 or $20, somewhere in there. And the bottom of this wedge, as you guys can see here, is about $10.50 as of the current price. So let's just say you wanted to buy somewhere around the wedge, you'd be looking at about 60% to 79, 80% respectively. So Riot, this one is still very cheap. As you guys can see, it just entered into the zone here and it pretty much just moonshot straight off of it. Again, that's very, very common. When it hits support, it generally, if it's ready to go, it's ready to go. It's not going to sit around and wait for people to buy it up. So current support $7.80 to about $10. Resistance is going to be about $18.70 to $21. And if we were to measure from the support to the resistance, you're looking at about 96 to as high as 122%. HUD 8, this one again is within this falling wedge. This is a bullish price pattern. If you guys don't know what the falling wedge is, go look it up. But it's a very bullish technical pattern. So presumably if it breaks out, the target would be the top of the wedge, which is about pretty much where this wick high is here, so about $23. If we were to take the measured move from the current price, and I'll just use the current price because it's pretty close to that zone anyways. If you guys wanted to buy in now and DCA down, you could reduce your risk doing that. But there's no guarantees it's going to come down. So anyways, it'd be about 94 to roughly about 150% move. So btbt, I want to point this out specifically because we do have a lot of shares in this. As you guys can see, the previous all-time high for btbt was insane. It was all the way up here at $33. It's currently priced at $2. If this thing goes back up to $33, you're looking at like a 16x on your money. And that does not include if btbt goes past all-time highs. If it's past all-time highs, it's going to be a lot more than that. So current support, roughly about $1.50 to $2. 4.25 to roughly about 4.80 on the resistance, and then roughly about 5.30 or so on the wick high up there. So if we measure it from the current price, which I would say is still relatively cheap, you're looking at about 93% to 124%, and then all the way up to roughly about 141% respectively. So cifr, again, this is the reason why we're not buying this one. It's not that we don't want to buy it. We just don't want to buy it up here as it's approaching resistance. If we were going to get into this, what we would probably do instead of buying the shares, we would probably just buy a cash secured put as it's pushing up into resistance with the expectation that we're not going to get assigned the shares, meaning that we're not going to be forced to buy them because we'd have our put price somewhere down here. And of course, if there's a pullback, well, we'll be forced to buy the shares, but we won't have to buy them up here at market price. We can buy them down here at the assigned price. So current support is about 220 to 270. Current resistance 490 to about 550 or 560, somewhere in there. And then the peak is up there at 570. That's not the all-time high, just so y'all know. If we get to that point, we'll talk about it. But from current support to resistance, you're looking at about 101%. 126% and 134% respectively. And whether you guys want to wait for the pullback into support or not, that's up to you. But as you guys can see, the high up here is roughly about $15. So bitf, this was one that was actually requested of us, so we decided to just keep on covering it. But as you guys can see, it is currently retesting this previous support zone as resistance. Ideally, if this is textbook, meaning this is usually what happens, we should see a rejection and then a push down into the trend line and then some kind of huge bounce after that. So the trend line currently supports at 136, sits at 136. Support below that is between 38 cents to 88 cents. I don't see it getting back down there, in my opinion. 236 to 198 is current resistance, and $3 to about 360 or so is the previous resistance. So I wouldn't be buying this. Just my opinion. We're not going to buy this at this current resistance because if it does pull back, then we basically took like a huge drawdown that we didn't really have to take, and we don't want to do that. So that'd be about a 31% move down. But if you waited for the push down to the trend line, you'd be looking at about 49 to 80%, 130 to 173%, and then roughly about 200% to get back up to that high up there, which is just shy of $4. So something else I wanted to point out, I'll go over here to the portfolio. As you guys can see, we are up massively on the day. Part of the reason being is because the Bitcoin miners have just started absolutely ripping. As you guys can see, everything here is green. Literally almost everything in this portfolio right now is green, with the miners being up the largest of anything. So 9.3% on HUD 8, massive squeeze on that one. We have 300 shares of that. btbt up 10%. And then Riot, a monstrous, absolutely insane 27% rise. Yeah, we might have to roll our covered calls on this one pretty quickly here because this thing really looks like it wants to start smashing to the upside. And then CLSK. So with CLSK, pretty much we kind of goofed on this one. We told you guys this one, but we actually thought it was going to break out. We didn't think it was going to break down. So you can see we had basically a cash secured put all the way up here. We did get assigned these shares up here, unfortunately, but we didn't have any shares to write calls at that time for a potential reversal. So we just decided to go with the cash secured put. We thought an at the money would be good because, again, if it does break the support or resistance, it's going to go way up here. And we thought, hey, we're going to catch that breakout move, and it did not break, and kind of is what it is. But so yeah, we kind of goofed on that one a little bit. So what we did is we pretty much did covered calls slightly out of the money, but going all the way out to January of next year. We collected a bunch of premiums. So you guys can kind of see some of the premiums here, 1,500, 126, 420. And as for our cost basis, because this thing had such a massive reversal, we're only down 1,300 now instead of being down 2,700. So basically, combined with the drawdown in the underlying shares and the options premium from the covered calls, we are actually technically positive at this point, which is definitely nice. Can't complain about that. So this is kind of what's going on with all these different covered calls here. As you guys can see, the plus signs here are just absolutely ridiculous increases. So a couple other things I wanted to show you guys here. We usually don't cover this until the weekend, but since we're here, we'll just talk about it. So btbt, you guys can see we have 830 shares. We did add some this morning, roughly about 30 shares. You can see we're down currently about 16%. That's the reality of investing, guys. The larger any one position gets in your portfolio, it doesn't take much of a drawdown to see, a pretty huge number. Like if you had $100,000 in a position and you were down 1%, it's going to show you it being negative 1,000. So just something to think about. It's all about psychology and managing your emotions and risk and stuff like that when it comes to investing. So we added a bunch of shares here, about 30 and a half shares at pretty cheap price, under $2 is a steal in my opinion. At some point we're going to be laughing all the way to the bank when this thing goes up to $30, but we'll just have to wait for that to actually happen. So as of right now, we have a lot of shares on this. And the other thing that I'm probably thinking we're going to have to act on pretty quick here is, so as you guys can see, Riot has had just a monstrous move today. This thing between the market session and the after hours is up $2.50 a share. So it went in one day. In one day, this thing went from $9 to $11.60 a share. Just think about that for a second. So on the underlying shares, we are actually in the positive, but we're also in covered calls too that are also in the positive. So, and we of course collected the premiums, as you guys can see down here. But so with current, you can see our cost basis is 1017. So we have our strike price above the cost basis. So no matter what, even if the shares get called away, we're still going to make money. Plus, we're going to get to keep the premiums. But I'm thinking we're going to have to roll this pretty quickly here because as you guys can see, we have one here for 25, which of course this is far outdated. So if it goes up $15 a share, we're going to make 15 times 100 shares. And this one right here is the one I'm thinking that we're going to have to roll immediately, first thing in the morning. So, which, I mean, if we choose to do that, that's gonna kind of suck because we only got $31 in premium. But if we wanted to roll this bad boy and say, screw that, we don't want to get called away at $12, even though that's about $2 of profit for that 100 shares, which again would be about basically $200 or so, plus also the premium, so $230. But I'll just show you guys an example of this, why maybe it's not always such a good idea to do so close to at the money. So our expiration here is 517. If we wanted to roll this thing to 524 just to get to a very slightly higher strike price, we'd be pretty much about break even. So maybe the better option here would have been to just simply wait for the price to recover and then do like a higher up strike, like $5 out of the money or something like that. But not to worry. If we wanted to, we could just do a further outdated expiration. So let's say, break even, we want to bump it up to 13. So we'd get $3 per share in profit, or we could even go further out and say, well, we're just going to put this further out. And if it gets called away, it gets called away. So here would be a slight credit with basically a $2 bump in the price. Or we could go even further out. So you guys can see all the way out to September here. We can roll this thing all the way up to $20 and still get some credit. And that would basically be roughly about a $10 increase or so. So something we're going to have to think about today, but we didn't really want to roll it this fast, but we weren't expecting it to reverse that fast either. So anyways, last thing before we go. So we are going to start covering videos and content of some of the native cryptocurrencies. This is not one we've talked about a lot on this channel as of yet. But since the Bitcoin halving has passed, I think it's important that we start talking about this at least on a weekly basis, if not more. So do keep a lookout for that. We are going to be going over our own personal positions in the native cryptocurrencies. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.